Welcome to For the Record. This is the very first episode, and I'm so excited to be launching this because this is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while now. My name is Katya, and I am a lawyer in Vancouver, Canada. And the whole goal of this channel is to provide you all with some public legal education. And how we're going to do that is we're going to take a look at common legal problems, things that I see come up in my everyday practice, and things that I expect a lot of you out in the YouTube world are seeing pop up in your everyday lives. And I am not able to give you legal advice through this channel, and you should definitely not consider any of what I'm going to tell you to be legal advice. But the goal here is I'm going to help you think like a lawyer. And how I'm going to do that is when we look at legal problems, I'm going to break them down into really easy to follow steps and try to present it in an interesting and relatable type of way. I'm gonna run through the type of analysis that I would do as a lawyer if you were coming into my office with this kind of legal problem. Each episode, you should be able to walk away with a better understanding of what first steps you're gonna take to resolve your legal problem. I'll also point out where I think it would be appropriate to start reaching out to lawyers and get legal advice on your legal problem. As I'm filming this episode, we are right in the midst of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sure that's not going to come as a surprise to anyone watching this. And this has been a really difficult time, we all know that, but especially it's been a hard time on parents, and even more so for parents who are trying to co-parent right now with an ex-boyfriend, an ex-girlfriend, or an ex-spouse. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about co-parenting during COVID-19. In the first half of the episode, we're going to look at 3 common legal problems that people who are co-parenting right now may be experiencing. And in the second episode, I'm going to take you through a legal analysis that you should do if you find that you are experiencing any one of these 3 legal problems. I'm going to take you through step by step so that hopefully you'll be able to walk away with a better understanding of what next steps you should take in your case. So the first problem that I would like to get into is disagreements between co-parents about parenting decisions. Now, most local governments have provided quite a lot of guidance about what safe social distancing looks like. And ultimately, though, we know that when it comes down to the specifics about how you're going to exercise safe social distancing and what activities you choose to participate in or refrain from doing, that all comes down to each and every household to decide on. And you may find that you and your ex aren't agreeing on certain things right now about, for example, what activities are okay for your child to participate in. So let me give you an example. During what I'll call quote unquote normal times, you and your ex might have thought it perfectly fine for your child to play street hockey outside of your house. But now one of you is questioning whether it's really safe to continue to do that. I know it's kind of crazy that we're questioning whether street hockey is a good idea right now, but let's be real, we're not dealing with normal times. So these kind of disagreements might easily erupt. And previously, during normal times, these are the kind of things that you probably would have been able to get over and find a resolution for. But now, all of a sudden, these kind of decisions seem way more significant. And you're right about that, because disagreements about decisions like this could have really significant outcomes and consequences for your child's well-being. The second common legal problem right now when it comes to co-parenting during COVID-19 is a denial of parenting time. So you and your ex may have worked out a parenting schedule during normal times, and that schedule might be written down in an agreement, or it could be in a court order. And it could be something that you've been following for a number of years or even just a couple of months. And all of a sudden, either you or your ex thinks that it's not appropriate during these times to continue to follow that schedule. So one parent thinks that they're being denied parenting time. And there are a number of cases that have already been before the courts on this very issue. So I can give you examples of the types of reasons that parents are giving for denying another parent parenting time. One common reason is that to facilitate the pickup and drop off of the child, it involves travel. So say for example, you live in city A, your spouse lives in city B, which is 100 kilometers, 100 miles, whatever measurement you want to use. They live 100 kilometers away. And you might think that it's no longer safe to travel such a significant amount of distance in order for your former partner to have his or her parenting time. Another example is where the parenting time would involve someone who is at an increased risk of contracting COVID-19. So take for example, your ex has a girlfriend and she works as a nurse. And so she's going to be more likely of coming into contact with people who have COVID-19. And you might be concerned about how that might affect your child's well-being. They might also then become at a higher risk of contracting COVID-19. So this is these are common situations that are coming before the courts right now. And if you're in this situation, you might be wondering whether it is okay to deny your ex parenting time because you have legitimate concerns about your child's well-being. Or you might be on the other side of the problem, and it might be your ex who has just unilaterally decided you're not going to have parenting time right now until she or he thinks it's appropriate. The third legal problem that we're seeing right now is parents left without formal parenting arrangements. How does that happen? Well, for parents who recently separated, they may have been in the process of negotiating parenting arrangements when COVID-19 broke out. So now that most courts all across the world have kind of slowed down their operations, it seems like a giant pause button has been put on everything. And these parents might be wondering, well, what to do now? There's no formal parenting arrangements in place. You're not sure when you're actually going to be able to get something in place. So how do you parent until that takes place? So a little note here that's important is that our legal system tends to work because we can always rely on the courts to step in and determine what is just and force people to fulfill their obligations, right? And we're dealing with a really strange time right now because all across the world, most courts have really slowed down their operations. Some courts have closed completely and aren't hearing any cases. Others have really restricted what it is that they're able to hear right now. So when COVID-19, the outbreak really started in British Columbia, where I am, the court said that they were only going to hear family matters that were urgent, and they had a very high bar for what was considered urgent. Now they're starting to open up a little bit more, and they are hearing matters that aren't urgent, but there's a lot of restrictions about how those hearings actually take place. Okay, I don't know about you, but that's enough problems for me for today. Why don't we start talking about solutions? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the solution is essentially going to be the same regardless of which legal problem you have, in the sense that it's going to be the same legal analysis that you apply to your legal problem regardless of which of the legal problems you find yourself experiencing right now, or maybe you're experiencing more than one of these legal problems. So let's get to it. Step 1, talk to your spouse. Probably heard this before, and it seems quite easy to suggest. And I know that in reality, it's not always that easy. But unless you're finding yourself in a situation involving domestic violence or you're dealing with a high conflict individual, this should always be the starting point. And that's true even for when we were in normal times, but especially so during these times. Because as I mentioned, we can't rely on the court system to the same extent as we were able to before. So it's really going to come down to you. You're going to have to become a skilled negotiator if that's what it takes to get your former spouse to cooperate with you. If you are talking to your spouse and you manage to get something agreed upon, make sure that you keep all of this communication in writing. Now, it's okay if you want to have conversations face to face or over the phone, but just make sure that you follow up in writing, whether it be text message or email, really summarizing what it is that you believe you and your ex agreed upon. Because I can tell you from experience, I know I've seen this, where two people, they think that they are on the same page, they think they know what they've both agreed upon, but then when a couple days passes and you ask them separately about the conversation, they seem to have very different memories about what is agreed upon. So make sure you get it all in writing. Step 2, ask yourself whether your case is urgent. And I know when it comes to children, everything seems important and everything seems urgent, and I get that. But right now, with the courts slowing down all of their operations, a lot of courts are only hearing cases that they consider urgent. And when it comes to family cases, a lot of times this means, is the children's safety or well-being at risk? And so that's the first question you really want to ask yourself. And if you think that your case is urgent, I highly recommend that you speak with a lawyer, as a lawyer would be able to tell you whether your case meets the level of urgency that courts in that jurisdiction require, and they can really help frame your case in a way that will help you get it heard as soon as possible. That being said, I do caution you from using the court system right now just because it is so overburdened. A lot of judges and court staff are working from home, and in most parts of the world, court systems haven't really kept up with modern times and modern technology. So they are quickly trying to adapt right now, but it's a process. So if you can avoid using the courts right now, you should definitely give it a second thought. But if you are thinking that your case is urgent, highly recommend that you speak to a lawyer about it. Step 3 is what we call alternative dispute resolution. So what do you do if you've tried talking to your ex and that's led nowhere? You also don't think that your case is urgent, or maybe you did actually already try to get it before the courts and the court wasn't able to hear it. Fortunately, there are other options out there, and we conveniently refer to them as alternative dispute resolution. So there's a lot of different forms of what we call ADR. So I'm not going to get into each type in detail during this video because it would take a long time, and I hope to be able to put more videos out about it in the future. But what you need to know right now is just that there are other options for resolving your dispute out of court. And it might involve sitting down at a table with your ex, guided by a professional who's skilled at negotiations, or it could involve having somebody who isn't a judge act like a judge. There's actually people out there who do that. It's called arbitration, something I'll get into in another video, hopefully. But think about that. There are other options, and I'm gonna link in the description box below a resource which explains some of the ADR methods that are out there and available. That could be a quick, easy, and cost-effective way to resolve your dispute right now, as a lot of service providers are actually offering their services remotely. So they're using Zoom and other video technologies like that to make it happen. Step 4, what to do next. So basically, you're at the point now where neither of the steps before worked for you, and let's say with alternative dispute resolution, you couldn't get your ex to buy into the process, or it was simply just too expensive for both of you. What do you do now? Well, if you have a written agreement or a court order, you should try to stick to this as best as you can. We want to try to maintain some level of normalcy in children's lives, and that can be hard to do right now. Times are scary dealing with this pandemic. So if you can stick to an old parenting schedule, try your best to do that. Also, if you make unilateral decisions without your ex consenting to them, the courts might not look on that very favorably in the future. But that being said, everything in family law tends to come down to what's in the children's best interest. So if you're following public health guidelines, then most likely you are doing what's in the children's best interest. So you're gonna have to use some common sense here, and you're gonna have to make sure you're educating yourself about what public health recommends right now. And you should expect that your ex is also keeping you informed about what she or he is doing to also follow those guidelines. If you do need to make a decision that is counter to an agreement or a court order, or maybe it's not even in writing, so it's not contrary to anything, but your ex isn't agreeing with the decision, make sure that you keep that in writing. You definitely want to think about how would you justify the decision that you're making today months down the road if your case ends up before a judge. You want to be able to justify that. So if you have supporting documents, such as medical records that justify why you made the decision that you did, definitely want to keep copies of those. So that concludes the stages of analysis that I recommend you go through if you are experiencing any of the 3 problems that we discussed in this video. And before I go, I just want to say much respect to all of the parents out there who are managing to keep your children entertained throughout this, and also for keeping their anxieties under control and reassuring them that this is all temporary and we are going to get through this together. If you're experiencing any of the problems that I discussed in this video, I know it's not easy to resolve, but I also know you are capable of doing it, and I hope that you found the tips in today's video helpful. If you did enjoy the video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you have any comments about the types of topics you'd like to see in future videos, please feel free to comment. I plan on releasing many more videos on both COVID-19 related topics as well as general legal topics. And if you want to learn more about me as a lawyer, there's a link to my LinkedIn bio in the description box. And until next time, this has been For the Record. Bye guys.